Africa is really a growing continent. I mean, futurists saying that by the year 2050, one of three people in the world, one is going to be African. So that's one major driver that we need to look at. And more than 60% of people in Africa are under the age of 25. And this tell you something, that these are tech-enabled young adults, and they are reactive to the digital platforms and internets. And of course, if you look at Africa as a whole, it's no longer what it looked like 30 years ago. Amazes us, and what also amazes me is the rapid growth in FECs, female entertainment centers, which have more than 40% share in the attractions industry. And this is due to their, being, weather resilient, and of course, if you look at, who they appeal to, as I mentioned, that is prevalent in Africa, being quite so young. So yeah, these are one of the drivers that I can just a few of the drivers that I can highlight, in a nutshell, to say that Africa is the next best thing, and the world's eyes are looking at Africa, and we're excited about that.
Look at Africa as a whole and start to look at the sub-regions, because any investor needs to know where they're going as far as a market to understand how to approach it strategically. Of course, you have northern part of Africa, you have the western part that is more francophone, and then the eastern part that more anglophone, and then the south, with South Africa being a very heavyweight in that region. Again, a lot of countries are developing in Africa. In the north, you have Egypt, you have Morocco, and others, right? But in terms of the opportunities, Sibu just mentioned the FECs being 40% of the entertainment market share, which is very telling, because that's usually the lowest entry ticket into entertainment is these FEC developments, because they're smaller budget, smaller investment, which gets you in the door. But not to forget that there's also theme parks that are happening here and there, water parks, and so on and so forth. And the fact that this is yet very scarce is showing the opportunity. The opportunity growth in Africa is probably the highest from any continent currently, maybe a little close to what's happening in South America. But the opportunity is there, meaning if you go to Europe or to Northern America, there's already a lot of competition. In Africa, there is not that yet. So that, for investors, is kind of the low-hanging fruit, so to speak. They went in, as Sibu mentioned, within FECs. There is a little bit of theme parks and water parks, but the story is still to be written, right? And then obviously the first comers get the advantage of being there before anybody else, hence to reap the benefits in the mid and the long term.
I would love to add, but only data from WTTC report. Africa had welcomed 99.2 million international visitors in 2025, and there is an increase only for 14.1% in travel and tourism contributed. Approximately, there was a 228 billion US dollars in income investment from Africa. The biggest opportunity is not simply selling equipment into Africa, is to create a complete local relevant entertainment experience. And I see five important areas actually. And the right size is the urban FEC, resource linked attraction, and attractive entertainment and edutainmental climate, responsive water and outdoor attraction, and digital solutions such as cashless and system guest data and game functioning. Actually, local partnership are essential. Developer, consultant, and operator understand the catchment and approval culture, affordability and climate staffing, and maintenance requirement, international supplier, bringing product engineering and technology. As we are at AG Active Play, we connect original IP, storytelling experience, design engineering, and international OEM ecosystem with the local market knowledge and operating requirements.
The landscape is open wide for investments. So to me, it really without getting into the kind of the nitty gritty of which solution and which partner, it's really to understand the landscape you're going into, right, and build it for the long run. In my opinion, to know the landscape, to go on the ground, to talk to people, to understand the mentalities, right? Because it is key to know who you're dealing with so that you offer the right tailored solutions. I know that in my personal discussions or discussions we had with Sibo, there was this idea of don't come and sell me a solution that culturally is not going to work for the particular country, the particular sub-region. And again, I'll let you elaborate on that. But again, to me, it's understanding the landscape you're getting into so that you provide and offer the right solutions.
I think one of the biggest bridges that Africa needs is technology. And one thing that I can say is that for Africa's story to be told properly, we need technological, interventions that can be able to narrate the story to everyone. I think the solutions that are needed that can, bridge the culture gaps so that everyone can have access to what the continent has to offer.
Key word here is storytelling, narrative, right? Is every place is unique. Okay, every place has its own context. Now, the wealth of Africa, and again, from talking to my colleagues here on the panel, Sibu, for example, we're talking about the wealth of the fauna and the flora in Africa, right? The animals, the uniqueness of the landscapes, the deserts, the mountains, you name it, right? So Africa is blessed because of this wealth. And to the fauna and flora wealth, I'm going to also talk about the cultural depth of Africa, right? From the pyramids of Egypt to the Medinas of Morocco in Marrakesh to the wilderness in South Africa and so on and so forth. Every country is a unique piece of a beautiful mosaic of the whole continent. So to me, to answer your question, is to tailor the narrative to Africa. Exactly the same way, we don't want, people in Africa don't want, vendors to come with solutions that may work for Europe or Northern America, but not necessarily for Africa, is even more so for the narrative and the story that you're telling. I'm going to share with you a little bit of my own, day to day when I get approached by clients anywhere in Africa, anywhere in the world, actually, is the first question, either for a theme park or water park or whatever it may be, is the idea of getting an IP versus coming with your own narrative, right? And so by default, I give them equal opportunity, right? As far as, steering the client towards getting an IP or having their own narrative. But honestly, it's even more so in Africa. And the reason, it's really two main reasons. One is, again, this wealth of history, background, culture that we can leverage in Africa, but also the entry point or price, if you will, to get in an IP versus coming up with your own story. So if you combine these 2 points, it becomes very clear that you at least want to consider or give enough consideration to looking at your own context, cultural, again, natural, and so on and so forth, and finding fertile grounds to develop your own narrative. Right now, you may balance that with an IP here and there, and so on and so forth. But my point is, you have to craft your own story, right? Which gives you better grounding and more authentic destination, right? For people locally, which I would start with locally, to be honest, but also for tourists that may come from abroad. Because, in this industry, people know that if you have a destination that has strong local visitors underpinning, it will survive much better on the long run than if you rely only on foreign visitation.
I put it very easily in 6 practical fundamental risk words. Every company have to have the market data. City level evidence can be limited also in the same market data. Logistic and currency fixed movement can affect CIBEX, and infrastructures, maintenance, affordability.
In Africa, you come to find that it's pretty challenging because the data is not there yet, right? There's very little development in this field, right? Again, I was in a convention in Morocco not too long ago. Morocco has become the first tourist destination, last year in Africa, which means that there's a momentum, there's amazing growth, where the hospitality sector is very, very developed, but entertainment is burgeoning, is starting, right? So you want to invest there or in Egypt or in South Africa or wherever, but the issue is that there's not enough data, which brings us back to the point we mentioned earlier of you have to still know the context you're going into. If you don't have the data, you have to go there and ask and talk to people maybe that are in a kind of a sister field, if you will. In this case, maybe hospitality or something like that. But it's very important to understand the context, right? So again, to answer your question, you have the commercial part, you have the design part, and when you marry these two, is when you start to explore, is that 10-hectare site too much or too little, right? Because you're going to talk about, yearly visitation, meaning how many people are going to potentially come to your site within a span of a year, right? Could be 100,000, could be 500, could be a million, could be 6 million, right? Now, these numbers, derive a very, very wide, size of, say, the development or the number of rides and so on and so forth.
Yes, that is true. But go and try out settings. I mean, we have certain zones. One that we know that these are tourist hubs within Africa. I mean, if you look at northern Africa, South Africa, you know that there's enough growth and tourism businesses are thriving. So you go set yourself up there, understand the culture, understand how the economics work, and then you have your idea to encourage that sort of entrepreneurship. And yes, there will be challenges. There will be, where you find yourself that nothing is picking up, or you've had your plan and you're trying to implement your business, but it's not going the way you want it. I mean, one challenge that I can point out right now is in Africa, our skies are restricted. I mean, you have to go out of Africa to come back into Africa. And these are things that investors know and understand. These are dynamics, that is going on. Don't want to speak about that, but you need to kind of come into the terrain and understand it. Come into Africa. And if you come into spaces with the right people, you will find partners that will take your project and take it to the side of your project. You need to be there to start to imagine it. And